This video is about making these two dizzy bowls from the same lamination. I followed a pattern by the Papa in 1947, but I wanted to try a different way of cutting than he did. I wanted to do the whole lamination and cut basically 12 by 12 sheets to cut the rings out of. That's what I did in this video. So I'm happy with the result. That's what the video is about. I hope you enjoy it. This is the lamination. I'm going to make dizzy bowl or bowls. I'm going to try to make two of them, big one and a small one. I'm going to try it there. It's roughly 12 by 12. Okay, ready to glue up. Went back and put some clamps on both ends to try to pull it down, which seemed to get it close to flat. So I let them go overnight, and the joints look pretty good. I'm going to put it through my planer to get it flat and get the excess glue off. Okay, the planing worked well, and a problem I didn't anticipate is one of them had a little bit of a lean to it, so there wasn't a good fit. So I have disc sand. I needed to sand these faces anyway because they had glue on them. I wound up sanding a lot more on the disc sander until I got a good fit. But it's ready for glue up. It's a really simple glue up, so I won't show it. Drum sand it till it's pretty doggone flat. So I'm going to glue a handle on. I cut this out just for this purpose, but I plan on saving it to reuse. I'm going to put it roughly in the middle, and hopefully that'll help me control this through the bandsaw better. Cut a couple of slices. I'm in my friend Wally's shop, who has graciously allowed me to use his big Laguna bandsaw, and it's got a 3/4 inch blade on it, and I'll show cutting one slice. And there it is. Okay, so after bandsawing, I've got a stack of slices, and the next step is to flatten them using the drum sander. At this stage, I have 12 slices drum sanded flat, and I've recorded the thickness of each slice. I did them all individually and made sure each one was flat. So I've recorded the thickness. The average is 1/8 of an inch, but I've got as low as 0.08. This one's 0.1, 0.115, 0.14, etc. I've got the layer number on there, and I'm going to use that in VCarve Pro to program the tool paths so that I don't cut too deep and take away too much of my table. I'm going to continue. Like I said, it may have been a mistake doing a 12-inch square on a bandsaw this thinly, but we'll see how it turns out. I think it's still going to come out cool. So to develop a plan to cut the rings, I used Segment Pro to design a dizzy bowl. I actually designed it with more rows than I used. I ended up with 12 slices out of my lamination. I'm going to get an average of 2 rings per slice. So just to have a little bit of freeboard, I decided to draw the line at 20 rows or rings. So I'm going to start with the biggest one, and the biggest one has an outer diameter of 11.4 inches and an inner diameter of 10. I'm going to use an 1/8 inch router bit to cut these rings on the CNC. So I need a 1/4 inch diameter or less than that. So I'm looking for a ring that's 9.75 OD. So this one's going to be in layer 1 or slice 1. And if I go down here, I find the first one is row 11. So I put a 1 by it too, so it's going to come out of this slice. And since I have 7.6 ID left, I can look for one that's ideally 7.35 or smaller. Here's a 7.4. That's close enough. So I'm going to get those 3 rings out of the first slice. And I repeated that process all the way through. And once I was done, I made a list of what I had available for the small bowl. And then I designed a bowl in Seg Pro to try to use what was left. I'm in VCarve Pro and ready to set up the first layer or the first slice, and these are the 3 rings that I chose off of the Segment Pro cut sheet. So I am going to draw in circles with an origin with a center of 6 and 6. I've got a 12 by 12 grid plugged in. So the first one is 11.4 inches in diameter. I can create that. The ID is 10 inch. So that's ring 20. The next one was ring 11. And it has an ID of 9, or an OD of 9.5. And an ID of 7.6. Ring 5 then has an OD of 7.4 and an ID of 5. So those will be there's the 3 rings created in VCarve Pro. There is a space in here in the middle where I can get a ring or maybe even 2 for the smaller segmented bowl. I won't show that, but it was the same process, and I will flip over to some of the other layers to show. So I labeled 1 through 20 was the larger bowl, 30 through 50 was the smaller bowl. So you can see here I'm getting 1 ring for the large bowl, and then I got 3 rings for the smaller bowl. So that was the process I used in VCarve Pro. So I am preparing to cut some rings. I can lay out 4 of these slices on the table at a time, so I'll have 3 batches that go through. My method for hooking them down is to use painter's tape and CA glue. Okay, I'm going to put the dust shoe on so I can pick up at least most of the dust. Get her to work. Okay, before I take that apart, I'm going to bring over my decoder ring. I'm going to label these rings. I used numbers 1 through 22 for the big bowl and 30 through 50 on the little bowl. That's 20, 11, 35 and 37. So that way I'll know where they go in the bowl when I take them apart. Okay, so they're peeled off. They look like they're intact. I will take them over to another table and peel the tape off, but I'm going to do the same process on all the rest of them. So I have all the rings cut. I still have a few on the CNC to peel off and take the tape off, but they're all cut. This is the pattern I have chosen to go with, and I played around with the rings last night on the table to try to pick one, but this will be the pattern. So I'm ready to start gluing some rings on. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this outer ring on to the faceplate, and then I'll glue these other two in after I get it on. Okay, ready to glue the first ring on. I have it in the Coles jaw and it's really just snugged up. If I try to tighten it too much, because these rings are so thin, it could break. The rings are already flat because I flattened the boards before cutting. Now I'm going to try to do this without a bunch of squeeze out getting on the inside so I can glue the other one. So I'm just going to put a liberal coat on this one side only. Orientation doesn't matter on this first one because it's setting the orientation. And this piece of walnut, 1.5 inches thick, will be the base for it. And do a little rub joint, tighten it up. Okay, same process for the smaller Dizzy bowl. The only difference is I had to turn the base down so that it would fit inside the grommets on the coal jaws. Okay, same process for the second ring. I'm on the small bowl. On this one, I'm not so worried about squeeze out. The difference from here on, and I'm not going to cover every ring, is orientation matters. Right there. Okay, lock it down. So I'm going to repeat that process on every ring. Well, in order to assemble two bowls at the same time, I'm going to do one on a lathe and I'm going to do one on the stomper. I'm going to glue this little board in the bottom. I'm going to use the drill as a clamp, basically. And I'm going to hot glue it in place. Now I'm going to drill this 5/8 inch hole, which is what I need for the stomper. And the hole doesn't have to be very deep. That should be good. So the hole just needs to be deep enough for a little threaded part to go into on the stomper. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate the stomper. And that hole that I drilled in the middle of that board, that threaded piece goes inside of it, so it centers the part that's on the faceplate. And this ring down here can rotate. So it centers the bottom ring, and then the two of them will line up. I have these two Dizzy bowls about half put together, and I'm going to do a little turning on the smaller one. The big one has that plug in the middle for the stomper, so I'm not going to turn on it until I get it done. But I'm going to do a little turn on this, partly because I'm curious what it's going to look like, and also to get it a little more balanced when I get the other half on. That's probably good enough for now. I'll do the final turning after I get it put back together. It's looking pretty cool. So I did most of the turning on both the large and the small bowl yesterday. I'm going to turn them down just using a negative rake scraper. At this stage, it's ready to start sanding. So I'm just going to run through the grits, but I'm not going to show it on the video. Okay, the large bowl is sanded and ready for finish. I am going to put on 2 coats of friction polish. Yes.